Hi guys, it's Anita here from Flowerfolk Farm. Thank you for watching our video today. I actually just wanted to tell you a really funny story that wasn't so funny at the time, but I can look back and laugh now. I've been beekeeping now for about 18 months. My first hive about just over a year ago. It was in spring last year, 2019, and that has sort of been I've been learning and going to bee club and stuff like that ever since, and absolutely loved it. Anyway, I have just recently caught another hive or another swarm and got them in a hive. I actually have Langstroth hives here, and I'm about to do some work on that, and I thought I'd take you through just what I'm going to be doing. So I'll show you some equipment and stuff like that in a minute, but I thought I'd just tell you a funny little story that happened when I caught this swarm. It was a Sunday night and it was really last minute. I got a phone call from a friend and she said, do you want another swarm? And I went, absolutely. As you do. And I had actually been working outside in the out in the grow free garden, and I had black jeans on, I had a t-shirt, and I just grabbed my bee suit, which is only a half suit. I just have the top half, and normally I just wear jeans and tuck my socks in over them, and I've never had any problems before, never been stung, nothing. Anyway, we went and caught the swarm, and it was a relatively easy swarm to catch. They were pretty docile initially, and we got stuck straight into it and didn't have any problems. And then all of a sudden there were a few stragglers just on the ground, little bees on the ground, and I thought I better just scoop them up just to be sure that there's no queen in there. And while I was crouched down, I had black jeans on, and of course the bees thought I was a predator, because black is just not the colour you wear when you catch bees. And I ended up getting stung about 12 times on my legs, and I just put up with it. Like, you just got to keep going. Once you've committed to something with bees, you got to sort of see it through. But then at the very end, as I was just finishing up and I was a bit sore, I sort of thought, oh, just one more check just to make sure that they look like they're actually going into the hive. And as I did that, I bent down and just had a quick look. And as I stood up, I actually got stung on the butt because I squashed a bee between my leg and my butt cheek. Anyway, it really hurt, and I had secateurs in my hand at the time because I had been pruning. The swarm was actually in branches, so I had pruned it, and I used that to sort of scoop the bee away, and I tore a massive rip in the back of my jeans. And anyway, it was a bit of a circus, and I was really sore for a couple of days. I actually had to take a day off work. I was that bad. But yeah, that's probably the worst I've ever been stung. And I've got to be honest with you, I've never been stung before by any of my hives. But that just goes to show you how important it is to actually make sure you're wearing the right gear. I was rushed, and lesson learned, just make sure that whenever you're working with bees, you dress appropriately. Make sure that you take the time to have the proper clothing on. But yeah, I just thought it might give you a bit of a laugh. I can laugh about it now. It wasn't very funny at the time though. So I'll take you over and show you now some of the equipment that I've got in the back of the car. I've just picked up some new stuff today, and then I might take you over and show you the hives. Okay, so I thought I'd show you just some of the stuff that I brought. These are just some of the beekeeping supplies I have here at the farm. And it gives you an idea just sort of what we need to have on hand, or, at all times, and some of the equipment that we use as beekeepers. This is the lid that just sits on top of the super. This is called a super, and this is the hive so I use Langstroth hives, and what we do is we sit the frames, the honey frames, in like this. And I have 8 of those that sit in these Langstroth hives, and you can see that they're already pre-prepared with wire and wax, which actually just helps the bees start off. So you can see there the hexagon pattern. If I didn't put that wax in, the bees would still go, might take them a little bit longer to start off, but they would still do it, and they would do that pattern perfectly. It's just innate in them. They're created to do that pattern. They're just quite incredible. So these boxes, these supers, have 8 frames in them. And this is called a baseboard, and this is what sits on the ground or elevated just off the ground, and then the super sits on top of that. And you can see the little hole here. This is where the bees go in and out. So there's the frames. I've got 8 of those, and I've brought a new queen excluder as well, because this actually, I'll show you how it sits. It goes on top of your super like this, and then that stops the queen from getting up and through, so that the second story that goes on top of these hives actually is for honey only. So the queen will lay her eggs and her brood underneath there in the bottom, and then the top is for honey only. So I know that when I harvest honey as a beekeeper, I'm not disturbing any brood, and I'm not harming any of the eggs or the larvae. I am just purely harvesting the honey, and the honey that is made under in the first story of the hive is actually used for food by the bees to feed the brood. So there you go, guys. There's just some of the equipment that we use for beekeeping. Okay, so first up we're just gonna smoke them just a little bit. What smoking does is just encourages them to go inside the hive and gorge honey, which should help make them a little bit more docile and easier to work with. So next, I've got my queen excluder ready, and I've got my new lid, and I've also got my frames ready to go. So just make sure I've got all of it ready to go. And we're just going to gently peel off the lid. This is going to be the first time that I've seen inside this hive for 4 weeks since I caught the swarm. So you'll get to see the same as me. Wow. And that's looking pretty good. As you can see there's some good amount of bees. Just give them a gentle smoke so they go down. But yeah, they're all looking really good. So I'm just going to pull up one of these, just to see that there's brood, and I'm going to go for one of the middle ones. Good girls. And there you go. Good girls. Excellent. I can see brood in there. I can see honey. And that's looking really good. Good girls. Don't want to expose them to the cold or the wind too much. They don't like that. So I'm just going to very gently pop them back in. I'm really happy with that. They're doing so well. Good girls. I'm now going to pop the queen excluder on, and what we do is we scrape that across so that we don't squash any of the girls. Good girls. I'm really happy that there's a lot of brood there. Good girls, it's okay. Oh good. And I'll just do a little puff of smoke. Make them go down. And then I'll add the box. adjust the frames a bit. Good girls. And there we have the new lid. And now you can see, I'll just leave this old lid here, but what you can see is now we've got the bottom super, which has got the queen and her brood and her babies. Tuck her away. We've got the queen excluder, and then we've got the second honey super on top, which is where all these beautiful worker bees will come up into here, store their honey, and that's the honey that we harvest. So the bottom one really gets untouched. It's really just for the queen to utilise as a breeding ground. The top is where we harvest for honey. So I'm going to leave this box out overnight, this lid out overnight, so that the girls will just make their way back into the hive, and tomorrow I'll pack it away. Okay, so that job's done now. We've checked that hive and I'm really happy with it. There was a lot of brood in there. I didn't manage to see the queen, but I really, because that's my first inspection of that hive since I've caught them as a swarm, I just don't want to disturb them too much. And because I'm putting the second top box on them and stuff like that, I just sort of figure that's probably another thing I need to do at a better time of the day as well, on a day where there's no wind. So, but today it was really just about getting that second top box on, the super, and then putting the queen excluder in there and a new lid. I've got a new baseboard as well, so I'll be putting that on next inspection. That'll be really good. So this is my, give you a bit of a glimpse. This is what I wear. It's actually just like a jumper. You can get really hardcore suits, which I probably will get at some point. Up until now, I haven't really needed it and I haven't used it. This seems to be serving the purpose quite well. I think though, once you've got a few hives, you really need to have something a little bit more higher protection. And look, based on my story that I gave you before about getting stung 12 times and one on the butt, it's not a bad idea to have a full suit. So the other equipment, of course, that I use all the time is the smoker, which the smoker is actually used to calm the bees, or people think it calms the bees. What it actually does is it encourages, the bees think it's a bushfire when they smell the smoke, and their natural defense mechanism is to go into the hive and gorge honey, because they're probably going to have to take flight because of the bushfire, and so they want to take honey with them so that they can use that to feed the queen and brood at the next stop. So what it does is it just encourages them to go into the hive, gorge honey, and then they're a little bit sluggish, so they're not as intent on attacking you. So that's why we use smokers for bee inspections. So sometimes I don't use a smoker. My other hive that I use, they're not very aggressive bees, but this one, because I've had issues with it when I caught it and I had a few stings, I just sort of thought, no, I think I'll use the smoker today. So yeah, and of course the gloves, which go right up past the elbow, and yeah, so they're sort of the main things that I use here. And it's always good to be prepared, have everything ready to go, know what you're going to do with the bees, so that once you're there and you've got the hive open, you can just go bang, bang, bang and get everything done that you need to. What I do now is I go inside and I have a bee record book that I got off the council website here in Victoria, and I actually record what I saw. So I saw brood. I didn't see the queen, but I saw brood, so I know that the queen is there. I saw signs of honey, and I write down what I did. So I did an inspection. I checked for pests. There were no pests evident either. And I write down what I did, that I put the second super on top and that I put a queen excluder on. And that's part of beekeeping, is keeping really good records. And that's important for biosecurity. Here in Victoria and Australia, we don't have some of the dreaded diseases that are overseas. So we want to protect our bee population here. They are so vital to food production, and I love them. As you know, I'm a bit obsessed with bees. But yeah, they're fascinating creatures, and I just love them, and it's a real joy to be able to care for them. If these bees weren't in a hive, the potential of them being lost through predators and through humans, unfortunately, is pretty high. So when I caught this swarm, I knew that I was saving those bees, because they would have been probably killed. So as beekeepers, we try and catch these swarms to give them a home and to protect them, and then to care for them and look after them so that there's no diseases. They're well cared for and looked after. So yeah, thank you for your time. It's been really lovely having you. I hope you will subscribe to our channel and follow more of our adventures here on Flowerfolk Farm. Every week's different. And yeah, I hope that you've learnt something today about bees. Thanks for joining me. Bye.